What's up, golf fans? Welcome back to another episode of Fairways and Dreams. I'm your host, Jeff Hartman, and joining me for this two-man scramble, someone that I've actually been following for a long time on social media. He is a golf coach. He is one of the top 50 coaches based on Golf Monthly. Unbelievable content that you can get for free just on Instagram by following him, and that is Adam Harnett. Adam, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me. What an entrance.
Well, I'm someone that, I'm a very mediocre golfer. I'm a single digit handicap, but at the same time, I don't have a lot of time to become like a low digit handicap, single digit handicap. So I'm like between a 7 and a 9. I am just always been fascinated with being able to fix the golf swing. Maybe not just myself, but just maybe like my children who are just coming up and learning the game of golf. And so the way that you portray how you should swing the club, maybe some things that you're working on with your clients is fantastic. It is simple. It's basic. And so for that, I thank you. And for everyone else out there I know that follows you, they probably thank you as well. So I want to ask you first about family, because that's one of the first things I noticed about you is that you do have a family. You've married, children or child. How many kids do you have?
Correct. 2 children. Yep.
2 children. Yeah. So as a father of 5, I have 5 kids. My oldest is 15. My youngest is 5 years old, and they all love golf. I have to ask you, how do you find that balance between family and golf?
I'm really lucky. When I first set up my coaching business, for me, it was all about making it work around my family, right? So when I coach, I don't give a golf lesson before 10 a.m. and I make sure I'm home by 6 p.m. So I do the school run. I get my boy up in the morning, do the school run, head off to coach, come home, and then I'm here for the evening for dinner. So that was one of my priorities because, I speak to so many people, and if there's one regret most of them have, it's that they worked through their whole career and they missed their kids growing up, and that's just time you can't get back. So for me, that's just been the priority, and setting up my coaching business, that came first, and then everything else fits in and around it. So that's really it's not too difficult for me to do because that is just my core value. I could work, I could coach from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day and be fully booked. But I don't want to do that. I had a family so that I can, raise a family and be a family. My wife does an incredible job. And we've got 2 wonderful kids, and life's great at the moment.
What about you golfing yourself? When do you find time to hit the links?
That's a good question. So before COVID, I would play maybe once a week in the lead up to some local events, right? So I'd play some local PGA events. And I suppose for me, that was all about just the enjoyment of playing and competing. But I'm a coach at heart, right? So I'm not trying to play for a living. Then COVID kicked in, and every man and his dog decided they wanted to take up golf. I don't know if it was the same out in the States, but one of the first things we were allowed to do when we came out of these lockdowns was go and play golf. So you couldn't do anything else. You could go and play golf. So everybody wanted to learn golf. So since then, me actually playing golf myself, it's been a struggle to get out and play. I like I say, I coach 5 days a week. So the 2 days I have off, I have a Sunday off, which is family day, and I have a Thursday off, which is normally a day where I get to do other things that need doing, right? So actually playing golf's tough. I fully understand that at this stage of my life, it's the grafting stage. So I am building my career, and I fully accept that maybe I'm not going to be able to play as much golf as I'd like to. But the plan is when I quieten down in a few years to come, I'll have plenty of time to play golf. So although I miss it, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal because I love what I do.
It's fascinating because I think sometimes people might see you on Instagram or other platforms and think, how awesome is that he probably just gets to golf every day. Like he can probably just go out and play. You don't play? You hardly ever get to play.
People who coach, I'd love to do what you do and just play golf all day. Well, I haven't played golf this year. I know we're only at the end of January, but I mean, I hit some balls in between lessons every now and then on my lunch break. My last 18 holes of golf was probably September, you know.
Wow.
I have had certain games booked in, but we've had to cancel them because of the weather has been pretty rough over the winter here in the UK. So um, yeah, but again, it's fine. It's one of those things.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. Absolutely understand. You brought up, like I said, in your bio on Instagram, you talk about fitness,
Hmm.
and that the golf community as a whole is probably one of the, I guess I don't want to say underutilized, but they definitely don't value fitness as much as say other realms. And
Right.
what's funny to me is that even when you get into like tennis and pickleball, other sports where people can play for a long period of time, there's
Hmm.
more of a connotation on fitness than there is in golf.
Right.
Most golfers are weekend warriors. They want to go out and have a few drinks with their buddies, and they don't really care about their flexibility. But in your personal experience, both as a golfer and as a coach, how important is fitness in golf? I know it's huge for me. I'm a former personal trainer. It's absolutely vital. But
Yeah.
hearing it from someone else, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah. I mean, I see. I don't know how many golf lessons I give a year, but I give a lot. And through my career, I've seen so many different golfers of different fitness levels, different shapes and sizes. For me, I would say the most important part of fitness for golf is almost the golfer's background. It's almost before they've picked a club up, right? So what are their functional movements like? We go back to being able to just throw a ball correctly. I gave a lesson a little while ago, and I was trying to get a lady to do something in her swing, and I just got her to throw me a ball. And the way she threw me a ball, I just thought, if she can't throw me a ball correctly, she can't swing this club, right? So,
Yeah.
in terms of fitness, I think it's more for me, more along the lines of athletic literacy, um, how you can move, how freely you can move. Of course, some of us are going to be more mobile than others. You're right, golfers don't take it seriously enough. Um, I think most of them only just have time to play golf, let alone spend
True.
time working out for their golf and then spend time hitting balls on the range. I also think that most golfers, that they like to see instant results, right? So warming up before a round of golf or stretching or whatever it might be, even just basic things like that, because there isn't that instant outcome. I think that's why it's not so attractive versus getting on the range and keep hitting until we see a different outcome, and that's it's much more attractive, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's probably why one of the main reasons why golfers don't pursue a fitness regime. Um, on how important it is for me as a coach, again, I think if I'm working with an athlete who has a background in other sports, there's two benefits to that. Number one is they have the right concepts in terms of movement. And number two, they have the physical ability to move it in the way. So um, it's a shame. I studied TPI, so Titans Performance Institute. I did a few of their courses. Maybe we're probably talking 15 years ago, I suppose, 10 to 15 years ago, and it's really eye opening when you see some of the stuff that these guys do, working with the tour players, and how important it is for those guys. And I think if more golfers were to take the time out to just have a basic routine, even just before they hit golf balls, they'd really notice the difference.
Yeah, it's really strange. And fitness in and of itself, you bring up athleticism because
Mm,
people don't view golf as an athletic endeavor. It is
yeah,
obviously it's a sport. I mean, it's people play at the highest level, but they never view it as a parallel to a sport like football or soccer, whatever you want to call it.
sure.
I think it's probably based on the John Daly's, the Craig Stadlers of our time that were heftier guys that showed
Yeah,
up. They looked well, John Daly in particular looks like he could
yeah,
go pound a case of beer and then go out and shoot a 65 in the next day. And so that does kind of paint a very negative perception. But I would say, and maybe you agree or disagree, this young generation of golfer that's coming up, whether you're talking about even the Jordan Spieth, the Justin Thomases on tour, they do take fitness very seriously. And I don't think that's
yeah,
something that again, the average golfer on the weekend even notices, nor do they care about. But I think it is worth noting for the young person out there that might be interested in golfing is that things like flexibility, your overall ability to move in a way that's both powerful yet consistent.
Yeah.
It's practice. It's practice. It's not just hitting golf balls. So, yeah, I think I like where you're headed with fitness, and I hopefully people do understand that it is an athletic endeavor, because it really, really is. It does take athletic movements, and it's difficult, really, really difficult.
Sure. And one of the things that stands out for me from my TPI training was, building the athlete first and the golfer second, right? So this athletic literacy, that we need functional movements before we look at sport specific movements, right? Like I was saying about throwing a ball.
Mhm.
So yeah, and with my son, my son Grayson, he loves to go up to the range and the course and hit balls. And one of the things I'm really keen for him to do is just hit it, right? Just hit it. He can try and hit it as hard as he likes. He's just got to kind of discover. He's still kind of learning his physical movements, being only 5 years old. So I think one of the key things I would say for junior golf, when it comes to becoming a good golfer, is to not specialize in golf, and to play all sports, to get out there and play everything. Because my background is gymnastics, so I was a gymnast from the moment I could walk. Really, I was put into gymnastics class, and I quit in my early teens, and I reached a pretty high level, and that grounding helped me with my movement, with my balance, with my speed, with my power. Gymnasts are the complete athletes, aren't they? And I think that's what helped me be a good football player, be a good. I kickboxed for a while. Obviously golf as well. So I think without that background, from an athletic standpoint, it's very hard to excel.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some golf specific questions here. My
Yeah.
first question is, for the most average golfer, we're talking probably 15 to 25 handicap. If
Yeah.
you, in your experience as a coach, what do you think is the most common mistake that they make, that if you were to just say, hey, here's one tip, doesn't have to be a swing tip, here's a tip that's going to help you without even ever working with you whatsoever, what would you think that common mistake would be, and what is the fix?
I would say the most common, understanding the concepts of what makes the ball fly.
Mm.
Because most golfers, when they stand over a golf ball, don't have the concept of how the ball flies or how the ball should fly, right? It is physics. It's one of the things that doesn't change no matter who you are. When the club's delivered to the ball, it will fly in the way that it's told to fly by the club, right?
Yeah.
And so many golfers, their technique is a product of how they very first instinctively tried to get this ball in the air and forwards, right? So there's one thing that we are trying to do as a golfer. We're trying to return the club to the ball and hit it cleanly, hit it in the air and hit it forwards. The most golfers don't have the correct concept. So when I'm coaching someone and I see them hitting their shots, the first thing I'm thinking is, what in their mind, what are they trying to do? So many golfers are trying to lift the ball in the air, trying to scoop the ball in the air, to the point we see them, go onto their back foot. So really clear concepts is key. That would be my most important thing. And how would you actually fix that? I mean, that's really hard, because there's so much media stuff out there. There's so many, we can just go on YouTube and look at these different videos, and we can look on Instagram and read books. So I would say, how do they fix these concepts is get a good coach. Get a good coach. If you're out there at the moment and you don't have a coach, get a good coach and ask questions. I think that's really important for the student to do. Yeah, but for me, without a shadow of a doubt, it's the concepts. And that's one of the things I do with every single student. I make sure that their concepts align with mine, because if I ask them to do something that their concepts are different, then it's going to be really hard for them to physically do what I'm asking them to do.
It's a really unique concept of how the ball flies and why it does what it does. Because when I taught for 16 years in the school system, and I was a physical education teacher, and I was the only one that would teach golf. Teachers didn't know enough about it. They were too nervous about the golf clubs, and maybe hitting a kid or something like that. But it's one of those things where you look at it and trying to explain to the student, middle school age kid. So we're talking anywhere from 10 to 14 years old. Well, the ball went that way because the way that you struck the ball from this angle put that spin on it, which caused it to go. And I would say 8 out of 10 times the light bulb would go off in the kid's head. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's why it's doing that. So if I do this instead of this, that won't happen. And they saw it even just hitting wiffle balls in a gym off a mat. And
Yeah.
that's a really good. I never would have guessed. I was expecting your answer to be something like, well, too many amateurs, they never take enough club. So always
Mhm.
club up and you'll be fine. But that's a really good answer. I'm glad you went down that rabbit hole. But I want to follow up with
Yeah.
something you said about YouTube and the online community. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts on the online community, the information that's out there? Is there such a thing, in your opinion, as paralysis by analysis with all the stuff that's out there, whether you're talking about Golf Digest, Instagram, YouTube, everything? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think with YouTube, it's a great tool. I mean, I built my house, the inside of my house, pretty much by watching YouTube, right? So I'm not going to say a bad thing about YouTube. Okay. Um, it's been great for my DIY adventures, and it
Yeah.
can be great for golf as well. Absolutely can be great for golf. The hardest thing is the user, right? So it's the person watching the video and how they interpret the information. That's number one. And number two, the only other thing that I'm a little bit wary of is um, when the information is given by coaches on YouTube, it can be too generic, right? So my philosophy is very much, we're going to take your golf swing and improve it. Or I should say that another way. We're improving your ball flight, right? So everything is
Mhm.
ball flight driven. So we're taking you from slicing to hitting straight shots, and I don't care what it looks like. We're going to improve your golf swing. Okay. So on that basis, you can't do that if you're looking at a video that says, here's the perfect backswing. Well, who's it the perfect backswing for? Is it the perfect backswing for someone that slices or someone that hooks? Because they're opposites. So, one of my real key mentors, Jim Hardy and Chris O'Connell from Plain Truth Golf, one of the things that they really hold at their core is everything is ball flight driven. So we're not, like one of my recent Instagram posts about my student who takes the club away on the inside. Okay, we managed to get him hitting it way better without changing that inside takeaway, because for him that wasn't the particular problem at that point in time. Sure, maybe down the line that might cause issues, but right now for him to hit the ball better straight away, that wasn't the problem. So I think in terms of YouTube, one bit of advice I'd say is make sure you understand your swing before you take any advice. Because if you're just, pulling information out, it absolutely is paralysis by analysis.
Yeah. It's almost like swing your swing, which is, I love that slogan, which has really caught steam in the last 2 or 3 years. Swing your swing, but understand your swing so that if you want to fine tune it, you absolutely can. Because, yeah,
Yeah,
you can go out and shoot a 120 and you say, I'm going to swing my swing, but that's clearly not working. So you need to
yeah.
tweak it a little bit.
That's right. And believe me, you can play much better golf without your swing looking perfect, right? So,
Yeah.
and this is the big thing. If you want to go from shooting 120 to 100, your swing still doesn't have to look very good for you to do that, right?
True.
But there obviously is a major flaw in there, probably concept driven, that you don't understand, that needs to be addressed first. And that's my kind of
Yeah.
philosophy.
Love it. How much of the analytics do you subscribe to as a coach? I mean, I've never been like fitted for clubs. My brother did, and he's talking to me about these numbers. You've got exit velocity, trajectory, smash factor. And I
Hmm.
looked at him and said, "Does all this stuff even matter?" He goes, "I don't know." He said, I don't really think it does." He goes, "If anything," I said, "Do you think it helped?" He said, "Well, no, I don't," because he felt like he was chasing the number when he was like
Yeah,
hitting golf balls. Like, oh, well, the pros, they have a club head speed of whatever, and you're at this. And so now he's trying to do that and increase his club head speed. How much we all use them in some context, but how much do you use the analytics in your coaching, or do you just dismiss some of them?
Now, when I maybe 5 years ago, I bought a flight scope, right? So I've got this launch monitor, and it's got every number on it you need. Okay, I think there's like 28 parameters. I would say I've used that launch monitor to help me coach 0 times, right? I used it for custom fitting. For the small amount I've done, I used it for when it's dark outside and we didn't have lights on the range, so people could see their ball flight. But in terms of helping me coach, I don't believe a good coach needs a launch monitor. Your ears and your eyes are enough. You can become a human TrackMan if you learn the sound of a ball struck from the toe and the sound of a ball struck from the heel or low on the face. And you can identify the difference between a pull and a hook. So I don't believe there is a real need as much as we might think. I think there's some massive marketing that goes into these. And of course, all the top pros have got them. Maybe if you're looking in the top professional game, when you look at a TrackMan, it can be really helpful for those guys when they're traveling through different parts of the world, because they're at different altitudes and they're working on their yardages and all that kind of stuff. Great. But from a coach's perspective, I think that's another area of too much information. And the golfer really doesn't know what they're looking at. They look at these numbers and they don't really know what they're looking at. They're overwhelmed by all the numbers. I think if I was ever to use some sort of launch monitor to teach, it would be for maybe just to show that the customer sometimes likes to see it. So I might have it on for them to see, because it's just one of those things that maybe is expected in this day and age of a good coach to have a launch monitor, right? But other than that, I really, I guess I'm pretty old school in my teaching ways in that regard. I use my camera. I think video feedback's really important, because feel and real are two different things, as you'll know, right? You don't really get that with launch monitors, really. Maybe if you feel like you're swinging one way and the launch monitor tells you that you're swinging the other way, that maybe is a feel and real, that where launch monitors can help you in a way.
Yeah.
But I've heard stories of tour players, and so I'll tell you a quick story. So, and this came from Jim Hardy, and he was on the range, and there was a tour player. I can't remember who it was now, but he was working with his coach, and he was zeroing out the TrackMan, hitting huge hooks, and he was looking really confused, and he was looking at his coach, and his coach was looking really confused, and Jim was just stood behind. And Jim knew exactly what was going on, and he let them hit. I think he was just Jim isn't a TrackMan man either, right? He is a human TrackMan. He's incredible. Yeah. After about 5 minutes of watching them try to figure it out, he went over and he said to them, "Would you mind just aiming your TrackMan at that tree over there?" And they said, "Why?" He said, "Well, that's where you're aiming yourself. That's where you are aiming, right?" So they turned it, and sure enough, his path was, 6 degrees into out, face closed, whatever. And suddenly the mystery was over. But because all of this technology is great, but user error is number one. If your launch monitor is not lined up exactly where you're aiming, in a lot of these cases, particularly the ones from down the line, the radars from down the line, then it's not as reliable maybe as you think. The modern day ones with the cameras and the alignment and all that kind of stuff, they've gotten really good. But yeah, for me, I'm pretty old school, and I feel like I can give most golfers a lesson just working on the ball flight, and that's where I learned my craft.
Yeah, and it's interesting how, to give you a personal story, we have a net that we put up in our backyard when it's a warm day in the winter, and we want to get out and just swing the golf clubs. And my kids are out there. My 13-year-old daughter, I was doing some stuff around the yard. I wasn't even watching her, and she hit a ball, and I said, "That was thin." And she said, "How did you know that?" I said, "I can hear it." I said, "Can you hear that? It sounds different when you flush a shot compared to when you hit it fat or catch it thin." I'm really big on that feel component. And it's probably because I was raised when there were no flight monitors, and you had to know. We played in the dark sometimes as in the summer months, and you're trying to get 9 holes in before it gets dark, and you're on the tee box and you're like, "Where did that go?" I know it went left. It was pulling. I pulled it a little bit. It went left. It's learning those types of that feedback from the club and the impact that I think is really, really important. And I'm 100% on board with the technology can be great, but it's
Yeah,
also not necessary. So
absolutely.
yeah, I have a quick question for you before we go into our rapid fire segment.
Sure.
Course management, I think, is the lost component of modern day golf in terms
Mhm.
of everyone's so I got to be dialed in. What's my yardage? What's my, I got to get my rangefinder because Lord forbid I walk it off from a sprinkler head or something like that. It's
Yep.
really become specific. But managing the golf course is, I think, where a lot of people, myself included, can shave strokes off of their score. So I'm going to
Hmm.
ask you a question as it pertains to course management. I want you to think to yourself. So we're going to start off with the bad golfer, someone that's trying to break 100. What would be a course management tip for that golfer that just wants to get out of triple digits for the first time?
Um, take one more club every time you hit the green.
Okay. So there's your club up. Yeah. Okay. That's good.
I think that's probably the answer that most would give. If that's if
Yeah.
yeah, that's my one.
Okay.
That'd be my one answer.
What about someone trying to break 90? You can see which way we're going with this. If you're trying to break 90, so now they're improving, they're trying to get down to the 80s. What would you say?
I would say now make sure you try and play to your personal par. Okay,
Okay.
so not the par of the hole, not greens in regulation. That doesn't matter at that stage. Your personal par, because so many golfers will at that level make mistakes trying to play to par because they see it's a par four and they've got to get on in two and two putt. Whereas actually play to your personal par, find out what your par is on that hole, and then plan your
Yeah.
series of shots from the green back.
Love it. That's a great tip. What about someone trying to break 80 and get into the 70s for the first time?
I would say within 100 yards starts to become super important. So aim for, I think having a target. I would almost ask golfers to, when they go out and practice on the course, to only score when they're within 100 yards and create a game within a game. So
Okay.
really hammer in that 100 yards and in, because that's where that's going to, if you're shooting in the 80s, you're probably keeping it in play off the tee most of the time, but it's in the rough and you may be struggling to get it out, but get it within 100 yards and get good within 100 yards.
And last one, so something I've only lived in this realm one time in my life, and that's breaking 70. What would you say to someone that wants to go real low?
I think when you're shooting in the 70s and you're trying to get below 70, you're obviously already a good player, right? So if you're trying to go from like 72 to 68, we're starting to talk fine margins. Um, and that's where it can get a little bit more individual for the golfer. So I think when you're trying to get when you're trying to break par, understand your real weaknesses through your stat collecting and hammer away at that, because I know guys that will um, break not be able to break par because they're putting awfully, or they're just not great off the tee, but they're a really strong iron player. So I think when we start to get to that level, stats are super important. So recording your stats, whether you use Arcos or just basic notepad and pen, right? Knowing your stats and hammering home at those stats that are the worst. No one wants to practice the worst things, right? So
Right.
absolutely, that's what I would say
Okay.
to those guys.
Fantastic tips. I appreciate that. You never listened to this podcast because you didn't even know it existed until I reached out to you on Instagram. So
Cool.
we
Had
always
a look
do a
at
wrap.
once you reached out, I had to flick through some of your posts.
There you go. So we do this rapid fire segment every time I have a guest on where I just ask you some questions. If you need to take a few seconds, that's fine. If you want to rattle them off as quick as possible, if you want to explain yourself, that's totally up to you. But there are
Okay.
going to be some random questions, mostly about your own game of golf. So are you ready for this?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So if you had a choice, ride or walk, what are you doing?
Walk.
Okay. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the sport of baseball, but in baseball,
Okay.
you have a walk-up song. So a baseball player gets to choose what song is played as he walks up to the plate at bat.
Okay.
If you had the choice of picking up a walk-up song where instead of being announced on the first tee, they play this song as you approach the tee box, what song is played for you?
Wow, I can't do this on a rapid fire. Goodness me. What would I say? Um,
Tough question.
yeah, I'm a big Jay-Z fan, so
Okay.
I'd probably go for a Jay-Z song. Maybe Dirt Off Your Shoulder.
Love it. I actually love that. That's okay. Who is your favorite professional golfer of all time?
It's got to be Tiger Woods. That's so
Okay.
cliche, but for
That
me, Tiger.
it is what it is. Now, let's follow that up with, do you think Tiger will ever win again on tour? And if so, will it be a major?
Um, do I think he will? No. Um, do I desperately want him to? Yes.
Yeah.
I you know, I want him to win every single time he tees it up. I just worry that it's got to that point now where he's battling himself, and he's battling his body, and that's one battle that maybe he can't win because it's he's human, but maybe he's not human.
Yeah. That's true.
So I would absolutely love to say yes, he will win again. Yes, he'll win the Masters. But in reality, I
Stuff.
don't think he will. Yeah,
Okay.
I hate to say it.
That's okay. Next question. What is currently in the bag? What are the clubs you're using right now?
Okay, so I've got the new Cobra Forge Tech irons,
Mm,
Vokey SM9 wedges, black nickel. I've got the new Scotty Cameron. I say new; it's a year old now. This is how much golf I play. My putter's still new, and it's a year old. New Scotty Cameron Super Select, and then
okay.
my woods. I've still got the old Titleist 917 driver.
Mm.
So this is like old for a driver.
Yeah. If
Um,
it isn't broken, don't fix it, I guess.
no, I love it.
Yeah.
And same with the hybrid in the same model. And then I've got a Cobra. I think it's a King Tech driving iron, like a 3 iron.
Very cool. All right.
Yeah.
What's your favorite golf ball to use if you had to choose one?
Pro V1X. I haven't played. I've played the Pro V1. I used to play the Titleist Professional.
Hmm.
So I played the Titleist Professional, and then when that was replaced by the Pro V1, I haven't played a round of golf with another ball.
Yeah. I
So
remember the Titleist Professional.
yeah, so it's the Titleist Professional, then it's the Pro V1. I'm in the Pro V1X at the moment,
Okay.
and I've never played golf with another ball.
There you go. What is your biggest pet peeve on the golf course?
Slow play.
It's a common thread. I love it. Let's go to, what's your favorite team format?
Favorite team format. Um, I really like. I really enjoy like pro-am format, right? So
Yeah.
best two from four. Um, I've played a lot of pro-ams over the years, and it's given me a lot of joy, and I've had some great times. So I would say, yeah, pro-am format.
Okay. What about golf attire? What do you like about golf? Like, there are some people that hate hooded sweatshirts on the golf course. They can't
Mhm.
stand things like joggers. What's your take on that?
Uh, I'm all for it. I think we need to make golf more accessible. We need to make golf more modern and of time. Um, also like a traditional look for those that like it. I mean, I think fashion is definitely something, whether golf or not. It's an individual thing. But in terms of golf, we need to accept that times are moving on. I wear
Yeah.
hoodies. Absolutely, yeah.
Music on the golf course, yay or nay?
This is interesting. I've played a lot of golf in the States, and I would say I much prefer playing golf in the States because of the culture of music.
Uh-huh.
Um, we don't have that in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, if you were to step on a golf course now in the UK, no one would be playing any music anywhere. Not in the carts, not on the range. There's no music at all. And one of the things I loved I played a bit of golf in Arizona. I loved being on the practice range with music playing. I mean, it's just the atmosphere.
Mhm.
It's so cool. It's changing here in the UK. In fact, my facility are just about to start installing music on the range, and I think it will slowly turn. But I'm all for it. I think golf needs that element of yeah, sort of vibes, definitely more chilled vibes about it, and not too serious. And we should be enjoying ourselves on the golf course, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. All right. What is the worst rule in golf in your opinion?
The worst rule in golf is um, not being able to move your ball out of a divot in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
got
100%.
how we are still playing golf now in a situation where you hit a perfectly good drive down the middle and you've got to play out a divot. How that's still a rule, I'll never know. I understand play the ball as it lies, and that's part of the game, absolutely. But it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, last question. What is your favorite golf movie ever?
Golf movie. Wow. I don't really watch many golf movies. I suppose favorite golf movie. I'm gonna probably have to go. Probably gonna have to go Happy Gilmore, just for
Nice.
the fun factor. And I know that my boy is gonna. He's soon to be at the stage where he'll be able to watch Happy Gilmore and enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to introducing that to him.
That's fantastic. He might have to wait a little bit for Caddyshack, but I get it. That's Happy Gilmore's
Yeah,
a
see,
good intro.
there's so many golf movies that I haven't seen, or if I have seen, maybe I've seen clips of them, but I'm not a huge movie person, so
Okay.
I need to get watching some golf movies.
Yeah, man. Tin Cup and Caddyshack got to be on the list. They got to be
Yeah,
on the list for sure.
yeah,
All right, Adam, thank you very much. I want to give you an opportunity to plug a website, social media tags, any
sure.
projects you have coming up. Go ahead and do that now for all the listeners out there.
Yeah, sure. My website is adamharnettgolf.com, and all my social media handles are Adam Harnett Golf. At the moment, I'm working in person, but I also have a lot of online coaching as well through the Skillist app. So you can find me on Skillist. You can find me through my website, all my social media handles. And I'm just working on an online course at the moment, which is going to be a 4-week online course where we cover mental skills, practice, course management, and everything to do with improving your golf that you wouldn't normally get taught in a golf lesson, right? So I'm working on that soon, and that's going to be launched in the next month or so.
That's fantastic. I look forward to seeing all about that. And Adam, thank you very much for taking the time. I do appreciate it. Until next time, take it easy.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.